All right, y'all. I've been hammering away at this lecture, presentation, whatever you want to call it, for several hours now. I am where I want to be with it for the time being. So, I am introducing Aquarius or the INTJ into the moral ranking system. So, let me gather myself. Okay, master key card. All right, so I think I'm ready to go. I finally created a visual chart. I've been wanting to do this since the beginning, and I finally now created it after, I don't know, 25 hours worth of video work in this series. So, Aquarius, you're going to get something very special in this video. All right. So, where to begin? Before we get into Aquarius, I want to ground what this channel is actually doing. So this is Heather with Underwater Panther. First of all, please hit the like and subscribe. All right, so what I'm doing here is not separating astrology, personality, or behavior. I am organizing them. So I'm going to pull up my key card immediately because it's an amazing representation of what I am talking about. So this is the Aquarius or INTJ key card. This is extremely foundational to this personality type. So what you are looking at is the ego. The ego is broken down astrologically through the ruling planets of Saturn and Uranus. Exalted planets through Neptune and Mercury in my system. Left field, you have the sun, and Pluto is in fall. Psychologically, you have introverted intuition hero, extroverted thinking parent, introverted feeling child, and extroverted sensing inferior. And I've also combined the inner and outer masculine and feminine quadrants through the nervous system under pressure. So we are talking about containment and moral load bearing. So there is a lot going on here. All right, so I'm not separating astrology, personality, or behavior. I am organizing them. Everything you already know, traits, signs, cognitive functions, patterns, that is all valid. I haven't been doing mic checks, so anyways, hopefully it is good to go. So those are real expressions of how people show up. But what I'm doing here is going underneath those expressions and mapping the structure that generates them. Because traits tell you what something looks like on the surface, they don't tell you how that system actually processes reality when something becomes unstable, uncertain, or contradictory. This system is built around that moment. When something doesn't make sense, when something breaks, when the environment no longer holds, because that is where the nervous system reveals its true order. Not when everything is calm, but when something has to be resolved. And what I found is that every archetype follows a sequence, not a personality description, a sequence. Where it begins, what it trusts first, what it bypasses, what it delays, and how it resolves reality when something no longer holds together. So when we talk about Aquarius in this video, as I scroll right on past what I was reading. So when we talk about Aquarius or the INTJ in this video, we're not talking about traits like detached, intellectual, or different. Those are surface interpretations of something much deeper. What we're actually looking at is a system that stabilizes through pattern recognition, structure, and internal coherence. And once you understand that, Aquarius stops looking distant and starts looking precise. All right, so what overview, what I will cover in this video. So in this video, we're going to break Aquarius down across the full system, the same way we did with Sagittarius or the ISTP, but from the opposite direction of the axis. We're going to place Aquarius in its position with overall masculine orientation, not as dominance or force, but as directional cognition under pressure. We're going to break down its moral load position and explain why Aquarius does not retain weight, moral weight, in the same way high retention systems, so high retention nervous systems do, but also does not discharge through motion the way Sagittarius does. We're going to map its internal architecture, inner feminine, inner masculine, outer feminine, and outer masculine, and show exactly where the system begins, what it trusts, what it skips, and what gets delayed. Then we're going to walk through its distortion order, how that forms, why it forms, and what it looks like in real time, and how other people experience Aquarius compared to what is actually happening internally. Because underneath every personality, every archetype, every behavioral pattern, there is a structure. And that structure is not random, it follows an axis. Every psyche is moving through the same 4 containment points. So first it connects to reality, then it contains reality, then it defines reality, then it acts on reality. Outer feminine, inner masculine, outer masculine. Connection, containment, definition, and execution. That sequence is universal. It is the order required for reality to be processed accurately. But no archetype lives in that sequence cleanly. Every archetype distorts it, not randomly, but in a consistent way. Each one begins in a different place, trusts a different layer first, skips or delays another, and resolves reality through a specific pathway. So what we call personality is actually a pattern deviation from the universal axis. All right, so I am going to bring up the actual awesome visual key card I just made. And this is huge. I sure hope you can actually see that on screen. I'm going to make it a whole lot bigger and scoot over a little bit as I talk about it. All right, I'm going to actually bring that up on my screen so I can see it. Where is it? It might be under my, okay, there it is. All right, so this is absolutely amazing. There might be 1 or 2 misspellings, but everything is good, besides perhaps a few misspellings. Oh, I just messed that up. I blew it up for myself, and it actually... Okay, my bad. I forgot that that was an actual thing. Okay, hopefully you can still hear me. All right, let me fix this. I had to blow it up on my screen so I could actually read it. And I'm going to move it just slightly over. All right, so I'm going to leave this up for a moment while I talk about what the heck is going on. And actually, I'm going to bring up Aquarius while we talk, but I'm going to make it very small so you can get the visual representation of the entire ego. So I'm going to leave that there, small. Okay. All right, so there are 3 different axes which I am running each archetype through. Okay, so number 1 is masculine and feminine overall. I've already done a series on that. Number 2 axis is moral load bearing. And number 3 axis is the inner and outer quadrants. All right, so what we call personality is actually a pattern deviation from the universal axis. But there are 2 more layers that determine how that deviation behaves. 2 axes that sit on top of the sequence and shape how the system moves through it. So axis 1, masculine through feminine orientation overall for the entire archetype. So this axis is not about gender. I hope this is big enough. All right, so this axis is not about gender. This axis, it is about how the system stabilizes under pressure. Masculine orientation stabilizes through direction, structure, boundaries, definition, and action. It moves towards resolution by narrowing, deciding, enforcing, and moving forward. Feminine orientation stabilizes through perception, attunement, integration, openness, and reception. It moves towards resolution by expanding, feeling, absorbing, and allowing. Every archetype sits somewhere on this spectrum, not as a label, but as a default stabilization strategy. Some nervous systems move early, define quickly, act to resolve. Others hold longer, feel first, and integrate before moving. All right, so as you can see on this, I love this. This is so awesome. I've been showing you my notes, like literally my typed out notes. So in the masculine through feminine ranking, I'm actually going to have to. It's so small on my computer for some reason. Hopefully you can read it on your side. All right, so the masculine through the feminine. We have Capricorn as number 1 masculine in my system, or the ISTJ. Aries, ESTP, number 2, and Aquarius, or INTJ, number 3. So they are in their own tier. So tier 1 is hard masculine containment, Capricorn, Aries, and Aquarius. How they regulate through structure, action, and system level thinking. So Aquarius is number 3 top masculine in my system. So they regulate through structure, action, and system level thinking. They don't calm down by belonging. They calm down by making things make sense. Capricorn holds consequence in long-term structure. Aries initiates movement when delay would cost more. Aquarius redesigns the system itself. So these archetypes ask, what happens if we don't act? This is weight-bearing masculinity, leadership without emotional permission. So the shadow risks for these archetypes, emotional detachment, moral loneliness, and opting out. And then we have tier 2 masculine. We have Leo, the ESFP, and Sagittarius, the ISTP. So how they regulate. This is symbolic or moral masculinity. They regulate through visibility, meaning, morale, and momentum. They don't hold systems together, they animate them. Leo stabilizes through presence, honor, and example. Sagittarius stabilizes through belief, narrative, and purpose. They resist capture until fear compresses reflection. Shadow risk here is performative morality, ideological zeal, and emotional stampedes. This is visible masculinity. People follow them because they feel inspired. And then we have tier 3, corrective or internal power, with Virgo and Scorpio. So how they regulate through internal coherence and moral intensity. Neither performs masculinity outwardly, both carry power inwardly. So Virgo and Scorpio, for me, they feel pretty feminine. I'm actually going to take this down. So Virgo and Scorpio come off feminine to me, but internally they're very masculine, so they can really throw people off. So Virgo fixes what breaks before collapse. Scorpio contains taboo truth and volatile power. They deal with consequences after meaning fails. Shadow risk, absolutism, control, and scorched earth ethics. This is silent masculinity, repair and depth, not spectacle. And then we have tier 4 masculine with Gemini. This is the androgynous bridge. Cannot wait till I get to Gemini. So how Gemini regulates through translation and rapid perspective shifting. Gemini is nonpolar. It connects everything but fractures under pressure because stress demands commitment, not oscillation. Looks masculine when detached, looks feminine when attuned, unstable when forced to choose. So shadow risk is fragmentation and contextual morality. And then we have tier 5 with Taurus, Libra, Cancer, and Pisces, feminine stability and relational order. So tier 5 is the most feminine, Tier 5 is the most feminine in my system under pressure. So they regulate through continuity, harmony, attachment, and emotional unity. Belonging equals safety, disconnection equals threat. So Taurus stabilizes materially, Libra stabilizes socially, Cancer stabilizes emotionally, and Pisces stabilizes existentially. They are not weak, they are relational regulators, but they fuse. Shadow risk is moral conformity, loyalty over truth, and emotionally coercive care. All right, so now we are moving into the moral load axis. All right, so where was I? Let me see. Hold on a minute. All right, so every archetype sits somewhere on the spectrum, not as a label, but as a default stabilization strategy. All right, so some nervous systems move early, some define quickly, some act to resolve, others hold longer, feel first, and integrate before moving. All right, so I want to explain what moral load is very briefly. All right, so let me say one more thing. This is why two people can experience the same situation and respond completely differently. They're not processing different events, they are stabilizing through different directions. All right, so I feel like I've missed something about the masculine and feminine. Is that all I wanted to say about that axis? So masculine through the feminine represents how energy moves overall throughout the archetype. Moral load bearing is where consequence lands. All right, so what is moral load briefly? All right, so moral load bearing, where consequence is internally held. So this ranking answers something entirely different. When something goes wrong, who feels it inside first? This is about internalized responsibility, conscience pressure, consequence absorption, guilt versus shame versus avoidance, and who carries failure psychologically. This is the axis of moral gravity, and this is the one modern culture confuses with masculinity. They are not the same. All right, so moral load is what remains inside a human system after betrayal, abandonment, failure, corruption, relational collapse, and unmet responsibility. It is the afterweight, it is what doesn't evaporate. Some nervous systems discharge that pressure outwardly, some systems retain it internally, some convert it into action, some convert it into memory. So there are two fundamental nervous systems. We have retention systems and motion systems. So the retention nervous systems are the top tiers of moral load. They keep weight, they carry after the moment ends, they replay, they store, they metabolize responsibility internally or relationally. They feel implicated even when no one assigns blame. So the retention systems, the top 1, 2, really top 2, but top 3, you can put them in there. Tier 3 is conditional. So the top moral load bearers, their nervous system stabilizes. They become the stabilizers, the conscience carriers, the emotional infrastructure, the accountability anchors. They don't opt in, they are the container. Now, tier 4 is where we are currently at. These are known as the emotion nervous systems through moral load bearing. They move energy, they discharge, they reframe, they pivot. So these nervous systems become the initiators, disruptors, storytellers, explorers, identity movers, and belief carriers. They are not designed to store moral weight. They are designed to move systems first. All right, so why? Okay, so tier 1. I don't think I want to get too deep into this. I already went through all of this in my prior. So tier 1 is the primary moral load bearers. These are the existential carriers with Capricorn and Scorpio. So these archetypes absorb responsibility automatically. They do not offload easily. They do not feel relief when the moment passes. They carry residue. They do not require external assignment. They do not wait for permission. Their nervous systems automatically step forward when something collapses. They are structural responders. They do not experience relief just because an event ends. They carry residue. They metabolize failure. They internalize responsibility. They cannot opt out. So Capricorn carries structural load bearing. The moral weight location is internalized duty. In consequence, Capricorn carries responsibility. Even when no one asks, watches, or thanks them, they feel morally implicated by function. If something fails, it's on them. Conscience lives in structural consequence, continuity, responsibility, future cost, and invisible failure. Scorpio. So Capricorn is number 1 masculine in my system and number 1 moral load bearer. But someone can be high masculine, like Sagittarius or the ISTP, but a low tier 4 moral weight bearer. So they are emotion nervous system. They don't carry moral weight. So these axes are not the same thing. So just keep that in mind. So Scorpio carries conscience and shadow. They are the conscience and shadow carrier. Moral weight location is truth, betrayal, power, misuse. Scorpio feels ethical violation viscerally. Once something is seen, it cannot be unseen. They carry guilt, shame, and responsibility for exposing rot, even when it costs them everything. Scorpio carries moral contamination. And then we get into the relational or operational retainers with Cancer, ENFJ, or Virgo, the ESFJ. So these systems carry weight through people and patterns. They store emotional burden, Cancer, and integrity memory, Virgo. They don't hold reality itself. They hold human impact. They become emotional infrastructure, relational glue, and accountability ledgers. So tier 2, relational and integrity load bearers. So they don't carry reality itself like the top 2, Capricorn and Scorpio. They carry human fallout. They hold emotional aftermath, relational stability, and integrity continuity. They become the soft infrastructure. They don't stop collapse. They hold people inside collapse. They don't carry reality itself. They carry human impact. So Cancer, the ENFJ, is the relational burden holder. The moral weight location is emotional safety and care. Cancer feels responsible for well-being, protection, and continuity. They internalize guilt around harm, abandonment, and emotional rupture, often even when it's preventable, when it wasn't preventable, excuse me. Then Virgo, the ESFJ, is the integrity accountant. Moral weight location is error, negligence, correction. Virgo carries responsibility through vigilance. They feel moral pressure around fixing what's broken, preventing harm through precision, and correcting mistakes before consequences spread. All right, so then we have the conditional load bearers. They are Taurus, ESTJ, and Pisces, INFJ. So these two can carry moral weight, but only when consciously developed, placed in responsibility, spiritually trained, and forced by circumstance. Otherwise, they absorb emotion but not consequence. They feel pain but don't organize it. They care but don't structure it. So they can be considered a little unstable compared to the top 4 archetypes. So tier 3 conditional load bearers, Taurus and Pisces. They absorb moral weight, but they do not automatically anchor. So that distinction matters. They absorb pain, but not consequence unless consciously developed. They feel deeply. They can endure pain. They can sit with suffering, but they do not naturally convert pain into responsibility or enforcement. They require development, training, or conscious structure to become long-term carriers. Otherwise, they seek relief, they soften, soothe, they dissolve. They do not anchor responsibility by default, they escape. They stabilize emotionally, not structurally. So Taurus, or the ESTJ, is the stability guardian. Moral weight location is continuity, provision, safety. Taurus carries moral load through endurance. They feel responsible for keeping life stable and livable. Harm shows up as disruption to survival, not ideology. Pisces is the diffuse moral absorber. Moral weight location is compassion and collective pain. Pisces feels responsibility emotionally but diffuses it. They absorb suffering but struggle to hold consequence cleanly. Guilt is real, accountability is blurry. All right, so now we're going to move on to tier 4, moral load bearers, which is where we are right now. So they discharge responsibility outward. They regulate through action, belief, identity, and abstraction, as well as narrative. They do not naturally retain moral residue. So that is the structural difference. They move energy instead of storing it. They do not retain moral residue naturally. They release, they redirect, they philosophize, they pivot. It is a structural difference. They are not designed to carry moral weight. They are designed to move. All right, so we've got Aries, Leo, Libra, Sagittarius, Aquarius, and Gemini here. Energy movers, not weight holders. So these archetypes are not built to store moral pressure. They are built to circulate it. So that just single distinction explains almost every relational mismatch between tier 4 types and tier 1 to 2 types. Tier 4 does not accumulate residue. They metabolize experience through motion. Where high load archetypes internalize consequence, tier 4 archetypes externalize process. They move energy instead of retaining it. They convert tension into action, Aries, expression and identity, Leo, dialogue and rebalancing, Libra, belief systems and meaning making, Sagittarius, abstraction and detachment and systems with Aquarius, and narrative and reframing with Gemini. They do not sit inside unresolved pressure, they redirect it. They do not carry moral weight forward across time, they reset. That is their design. So why tier 4 doesn't retain moral residue? I think I actually hammered that quite a bit. I guess I'll go into it a little bit more. So tier 4 nervous systems are calibrated for throughput, not storage. They orient towards movement, reframing, initiation, ideation, social circulation, and future orientation. They experience reality as something to respond to, not something to absorb. So when something painful, unethical, or destabilizing occurs, tier 4 archetypes instinctively ask, what do I do with this? Not who is responsible long term, not how do I hold this, not what must be carried forward. They discharge pressure by acting on it. So the regulation pattern. Tier 4 regulates internally by externalizing. Tier 1 and Tier 2 regulate by internalizing. That is the core difference. High moral load archetypes pull pressure inward. Tier 4 pushes pressure outward. They don't hold tension inside the body. They release it into behavior, speech, movement, or belief. So why this feels like not carrying too high load moral archetypes. All right, so a Capricorn, Scorpio, Cancer, or Virgo experiences tier 4 archetypes as minimizing, deflecting, changing the subject, moving on too fast, philosophizing pain, and avoiding accountability. But from the tier 4 nervous system perspective, they already processed it. They didn't store it, they discharged it. Tier 4 assumes regulation is complete once emotional energy has moved. High load types assume regulation requires responsibility to be held over time. These are opposite architectures. Neither is wrong. They just don't speak the same containment language. All right, so Aries is the action-oriented responsibility. Moral weight location is immediate action. Aries feels responsible to act, not to reflect. Consequence is secondary to momentum. They'll fix fast, but don't carry long-term moral residue. All right, so Aries feels responsible to act. All right, so burnout risk is impulsivity, and they can be misread as selfish and reckless. And then we have Leo, the ESFP, identity-based ethics, moral weight location is self-concept and honor. Leo carries morality through identity. Who am I if I do this? Guilt arises when self-image fractures, not when systems fail. Moral weight location, self-concept, and honor. Leo carries morality through identity. Who am I if I do this? Guilt arises when the self-image fractures. All right, why did I put that in there twice? That's silly of me. All right, so burnout risk is shame collapse, misread as dramatic, ego-driven. Leo carries identity integrity, not system responsibility. Then we have Libra or the ENTP, relational outsourcer. Moral weight location is consensus and fairness. Libra defers moral weight to agreement. Responsibility dissolves once harmony is restored, even if truth is sacrificed. So burnout risk is indecision, misread as two-faced and avoidant. Libra externalizes morality to agreement. Harmony replaces truth. Once peace is restored, load disappears. Then we have Sagittarius or the ISTP, belief-based morality. Moral weight location is philosophy and meaning. Sagittarius carries belief strongly, but responsibility lightly. Once an action is justified by worldview, guilt evaporates. So, burnout risk is ideological rigidity, misread as preachy and careless. Sagittarius moralizes through meaning. Once something fits a belief system, guilt dissolves. They carry philosophy, not consequence. And then we have Aquarius, the INTJ, is the systemic deflector. Moral weight location is ideals and systems. Aquarius externalizes responsibility to frameworks, movements, or futures. Ethical certainty is high, personal accountability is low. The system is the problem. Burnout risk is detachment, and they can be misread as cold and superior. So, Aquarius, I'm going to bring up your key card if I can find it. All right, so Aquarius, let's see, where was I? Carries conceptual ethics, ideological frameworks, and future abstractions, but not personal burden. Aquarius says this is a systemic issue, which removes internal responsibility. They feel right, they do not feel implicated. This is why Aquarius looks morally confident, but emotionally detached. So Aquarius discharges through abstraction. Aquarius detaches, they intellectualize, they contextualize, they pull emotion into systems thinking. They don't carry moral weight in the body, they distribute it into ideas. All right, and lastly, we have Gemini or the ENTJ, contextual lightweight. So Gemini is number 12, the last moral weight bearer, lack thereof. So moral weight location is information and adaptability. Gemini experiences morality situationally. Responsibility shifts with context. Guilt dissolves through reframing. It depends. Burnout risk is minimalization. Oh, the burnout risk, very minimal. Very minimal. Misread as shallow and unreadable. So Gemini reframes, responsibility dissolves through context. They do not retain moral residue unless highly developed. They are the lightest load. All right, so the core structural truth. Tier 4 archetypes are not designed to carry, they are designed to move. They are circulation systems. They keep reality dynamic. They prevent stagnation. They introduce possibility. They catalyze change. They do not anchor consequence. They do not retain contamination. They do not hold relational burden. They metabolize pressure by releasing it. So this is not a flaw. Without tier 4, systems become rigid, pain becomes trapped, meaning collapses, and movement stops. Tier 4 brings adaptability, innovation, humor, perspective, and momentum. All right, so tier 1 holds reality together. Tier 2 holds humanity together. Tier 3 absorbs conditionally. Tier 4 moves everything along. Different roles, same ecosystem. So, final core law, high moral load archetypes retain weight, low moral load archetypes discharge weight. So, that single distinction explains burnout, relational imbalance, emotional labor, accountability collapse, and why certain people always end up holding everything. That is the moral gravity map. All right, so I hammered that pretty well. I'm going to get this back up to Aquarius. I actually didn't plan on doing all of that, but I am glad I did. I know I will enjoy listening to it in full. All right, so we were going over axis 2, moral retention. All right, so the second axis determines something even more specific, what this system carries across time. Some archetypes are built to retain, they carry emotional weight, relational continuity, and unresolved impact. They track what is still being held. Other archetypes are built to resolve. They process, extract meaning, complete the loop, and release. They track what has already been resolved. This is why let's see. Yeah, so this is what I refer to as moral load. Not morality in a judgment sense, but where consequence is stored and how long it remains active in the system. So high moral load systems hold longer, feel longer, carry impact across time. Low moral systems process quickly, resolve internally, and release once complete. And this is where a lot of understandings happen because one system releases and another is still holding. It looks like detachment, lack of care, or avoidance. When in reality, they're tracking different things. One is tracking what is still being felt. The other is tracking what has already been resolved. All right, so now how all of these axes work together. All right, so I didn't exactly get into, let me briefly go over Aquarius's masculine, inner and outer masculine and feminine. All right, so Aquarius, the universal order is outer feminine, inner masculine, and outer masculine. I will break this down in depth. This is just a briefing. So Aquarius's distortion order is found on the key card. It's probably too small to see right now, but they have a system survival distortion order. We go from the inner feminine and I hero Saturn and Uranus. So that is pattern recognition, trajectory tracking, and systems awareness in that quadrant with the hero. Actually, let me do this. And then this. All right, so I'm going to leave this here because we have covered the outer. All right, so this is a great way to actually do it, I think. Okay. So the inner feminine quadrant, and I hero Saturn and Uranus. So this is the pattern recognition, trajectory tracking, and systems awareness. Where is this going? Aquarius sees trajectories early, understands systems beneath reality, and lives in pattern space. It perceives the abstraction before it fully perceives the actual. So I'm actually going to break this down a little bit more. Okay, so NI Hero perceives patterns across time, compresses complexity into singular trajectories, sees outcomes before events fully unfold, NI removes noise and locks onto inevitability. Okay, let me say one more thing. Okay, so Aquarius is the systemic survival order. They regulate through pattern recognition, systems thinking, and conceptual mapping. Aquarius does not begin with external perception. It begins with internal pattern recognition and the structure behind reality first. All right, so Saturn represents structure, time, and pressure, grounds perception into reality constraints, adds consequence awareness and long-term weight. Ask what actually holds over time. Saturn stabilizes NI so it doesn't drift into fantasy. Uranus is disruption, innovation, and system override. Detects where systems are outdated or inefficient, introduces sudden insight and paradigm shifts, rejects inherited structure in favor of better architecture. If you haven't realized, you have now entered my Aquarian 11th house Mercury. This is my mind, FYI. Yes. All right. So Uranus breaks systems so NI can rebuild them. Aquarius perceives systems beneath events, trajectories beneath behavior, and patterns beneath emotion. It does not scan the room first, it scans the pattern field. This is an internal function. Aquarius does not lack perception, it misplaces perception internally before external contact. All right, so then we have the inner masculine with, and I did notate the IF is inner feminine, IM is inner masculine, OF outer feminine, OM outer masculine. If you couldn't tell, I did update my key cards, thank goodness. And I also put the distortion order on there because they are not all the same. All right, so the inner masculine is TE parent, Neptune, and Mercury in exaltation. So this quadrant represents structural logic, system building, meaning architecture. Once the pattern is seen, Aquarius immediately defines it. Aquarius defines systems logically, builds frameworks, and applies structure to insight. It does not just understand reality, it builds a model that explains how reality works. Distortion begins when this definition forms before reality has been fully received. Okay, so function and planet breakdown. So TE, parent, extroverted thinking parent, organizes reality into functional systems, prioritizes efficiency, execution, and external structure. Ask what works in reality. TE converts insight into usable structure. So you can see TE, parent, and Saturn have a lot in common. Mercury in exaltation processes, articulates, and translates complex information, enhances clarity, precision, and system communication, allows abstraction to be explained cleanly. Mercury gives Aquarius high-level articulation of systems. Neptune in exaltation expands perception into symbolic, abstract, and conceptual meaning, dissolves rigid boundaries between ideas, allows Aquarius to connect systems across domains. Neptune gives Aquarius visionary synthesis. Aquarius builds frameworks, defines meaning, organizes abstract insight into coherent systems. It does not just understand reality, it builds a model of reality. So the distortion point here, Aquarius often defines reality before reality has fully arrived. The structure is accurate systemically, incomplete relationally. So the outer feminine comes next, and that is out of order. All right, so now we move on to the outer feminine with introverted feeling child and the sun in left field. This quadrant represents internal values expressed outwardly through selective emotional visibility. Aquarius does not use outer feminine to understand the field first. It uses it to reveal where it stands after the system is already formed. Values are real, but relational connection can feel delayed, contained, or positional rather than adaptive. So, function and planet breakdown. A Phi child forms internal values and emotional truth, prioritizes authenticity and personal alignment. Ask, what does this feel true to me? Does this feel true to me? FI is sincere, but not always externally adaptive. Sun represents identity and expression, projects identity outward, expresses personal stance and individuality, seeks to be seen as aligned with internal truth. Sun gives FI visibility and identity projection. Aquarius expresses values after defining systems, shares perspectives rather than absorbing others, and connects through truth expression, not attunement. Connection becomes selective, positional, and delayed. Others experience distance, being interpreted instead of felt. So other people are thinking, wow, you've already decided what this is. All right, so now we're going to move into the outer masculine, the last quadrant with extroverted sensing inferior and Pluto in fall. So this quadrant represents real-world action, embodied engagement, immediate execution, and consequence delivery. This is the weakest and most delayed layer. Aquarius fears acting on incomplete reality more than it fears missing the moment. So action is often postponed until internal clarity feels sufficient. From the outside, this can look like hesitation, absence, or delay. Internally, Aquarius is still refining the system. Function and planet breakdown. As the inferior represents engaging directly with present moment reality, requires responsiveness, immediacy, and physical action. Ask what is happening right now. This is where Aquarius struggles the most. They're very abstract, future oriented in their temperament. Pluto in fall represents governing power, control, and raw consequence. In fall, discomfort with force, intensity, and domination. Difficulty holding or applying pressure in real time. Pluto weakens Aquarius's relationship to impact and force. Aquarius delays action, avoids premature engagement, struggles with immediacy. Aquarius fears acting on incomplete reality more than it fears missing the moment. So freaking key. So it refines, analyzes, and waits. From the outside, it can look like hesitation, absence, and inaction. Internally, they feel like it's clarity, readiness, and completion. So the distortion order is inner feminine, inner masculine, outer feminine, and outer masculine late. So Aquarius does not lack awareness. It finalizes reality internally before reality is fully received externally. All right, so what others experience. You're explaining me instead of being with me. You already decided what this is. You knew all of this but didn't act. Aquarius fears being wrong in action more than being late to act. So healthy integration shift. Aquarius does not need to stop using inner feminine first. The shift is reintroduce outer feminine before definition. The healthy integration order is outer feminine with perception, inner feminine with safety, inner masculine with values, and outer masculine with action. Aquarius becomes healthier not by losing pattern recognition, but by letting reality speak before locking the pattern into structure. So I will be breaking this down in depth. I should have brought the key card up while I was explaining this, but I will later. I'm assuming I'm going to break this into multiple different videos. So that was an overview of Aquarius's inner and outer masculine and feminine. All right, so I'm going to make Aquarius smaller because I am going to recap or explain how these axes work together. All right, so how these axes work together. Now combine everything. You have the as a whole, you have the masculine and feminine, how an archetype stabilizes. You have the moral load axis, what the archetype carries. And then you have the sequence through the inner and outer masculine and feminine, which is where the system moves under pressure. And together, these three layers determine how an archetype actually behaves under load. So when we break down Aquarius in this video, we're not just describing traits, we're placing Aquarius inside all three layers. Where it begins in the sequence, how it stabilizes, what it carries, what it releases, and how it resolves reality when something doesn't make sense. Because Aquarius doesn't just act differently, it is solving a different problem. So this isn't replacing personality, it's explaining what generates it. So every archetype in the system is not just defined by traits, it is defined by process, it is defined by sequence, and more specifically, it is defined by where containment breaks down through the inner and outer masculine and feminine, and where force enters too early or too late. All right, so when we talk about Aquarius, we're not talking about someone who is detached, intellectual, or different. Those are surface interpretations of something much deeper. What we are actually looking at is a system that prioritizes pattern recognition over immediate reality structure and over emotional continuity, and internal coherence over external responsiveness. All right, so there you go. That was awesome. I absolutely love having that key card. I wish I had it for the other ones. So we are at an hour right now. All right, so Aquarius. I don't know if I should keep this up here. Actually, you know what? I'm probably going to keep this up here for a moment because we're going to break down the masculine number, Aquarius being number 3 masculine, and their moral load position. All right. I need to get more comfortable, per usual. Okay. So. All right, moving on along. So Aquarius sits at number 3 in overall masculine orientation. And that position only makes sense if masculinity is understood as directional authority, not force. So I am going to keep this up here and make it smaller just so you can have a little kind of reference of what it looks like. Okay. I know this is a lot. I really, truly hope that you can see. Hopefully you can see that well enough. All right, so here we go. All right, so Aquarius sits at number 3 in overall masculine orientation, and that position only makes sense if masculinity is understood as directional authority, not force. Because Aquarius does not assert direction through movement, and it does not stabilize direction through control. It establishes direction through understanding, and that distinction is what makes it fundamentally different from every archetype around it. Try to get an Aquarius. You know, it's funny. I know an Aquarius that had an opportunity to get a team leading position, and they didn't want it because they didn't want to be in charge. And then I also know an Aquarius that is more into like human resources, just kind of helping people, not really telling people what to do, and they love that position. It totally plays out in real life. I know everyone's personality types. I can tell you that I work around, family, friends, you name it. All right, so it establishes direction through understanding, and that distinction is what makes it fundamentally different from every archetype around it. Where Aries creates direction by entering reality first and forcing a path into existence, and Capricorn stabilizes direction by structuring reality over time. Aquarius defines direction before either of those things happen. I want to make Aquarius a wee little bigger. All right. All right, so Aquarius defines direction before either of those things happen. It does not need to act to know where something is going, and it does not need to build to feel secure in that direction. Hello, NI. It needs the system to resolve internally into coherence. So NI, we have Aquarius is an introverted archetype overall. You've got NI hero and FI child. They loop between the two most often than not. So if you see the plus signs and the negative signs, any hero, FI child have the plus sign. It takes less energy to use those cognitive functions. They are optimistic in their orientation. TE parent and SE inferior have the negative sign on there, so it takes more cognitive energy to use. So we prefer to fall back on our positive functions. All right, so where Aries creates direction by entering reality first. Did I just say that? Yes, I did. Where was I? All right, so it needs a system to resolve internally into coherence. Aquarius's masculinity is not physical, it is not behavioral, it is not even situational in the way most people recognize. It is structural. Aquarius holds direction at the level of pattern, not at the level of environment. And because of that, it can maintain a sense of orientation even when nothing external has changed yet. It is not waiting for proof in the physical world. It is tracking inevitability in the conceptual one. And that is where Aquarius separates completely from action-based masculinity. Because once Aquarius recognizes a pattern clearly enough, it does not experience that pattern as something that might happen. It experiences it as something that is already unfolding. To Aquarius, a pattern is not a possibility, it is a trajectory. And trajectory carries direction inside it. So while other systems are still waiting for confirmation, still watching for evidence, still trying to decide what something is, Aquarius has already oriented itself internally. It has already adjusted its position relative to where things are going, not where they currently appear to be. This is why Aquarius often feels ahead of reality, not faster in action, earlier in recognition. All right, so I think I'm going to actually take this down now because I'm like uncomfortable sitting like this, so I'm going to do this. I think we get the point with that. And I am going to adjust myself because that is certainly not comfy. All right. I lost my pillow that I normally have behind me. All right, so where was I? I'm going to scroll up briefly. All right, so this is why Aquarius often feels ahead of reality, not faster in action, earlier in recognition. It is not reacting to what is happening, it is aligning to what is emerging. And once that alignment locks in, Aquarius does not feel lost, it does not feel uncertain, it does not need to act immediately to stabilize itself. The direction already exists internally, action becomes secondary. But this is also where the tension and the distortion begins, because Aquarius can be right about direction and still be out of sync with reality. It can see exactly where something is going, map it with precision, and internally align to that outcome. But if it has not fully engaged with the present moment, SE inferior, it begins relating to a future that has not fully arrived yet. So we are certainly talking about NI hero and SE inferior dynamics. And from the outside, this creates a very specific experience. It feels like Aquarius is skipping steps, like it is already somewhere else, like it is responding to something that hasn't fully happened, because in a way it is. Its masculinity is not anchored in present time engagement. It is anchored in structural inevitability. It is not asking what is happening right now. It is asking, what does this become? Future oriented at all times. And it seriously feels like an outer body experience being an Aquarius. If you see, I've got my astronaut here. I can't even figure this out. There you are. That's what it feels like to be an Aquarius. You're in it, but not of it. All right, so its masculinity is not anchored in present time engagement. It is anchored in structural inevitability. So it is not asking what is happening right now. It is asking, what does this become? So when you are in front of Aquarius, speaking, expressing, still inside a moment, there can be a subtle shift where you feel like you are no longer being met in real time. Not because Aquarius is dismissing you, but because it has already placed the moment into a larger pattern and moved forward internally. What feels like distance is not absence, it's displacement in time. We do not get along with time. Aquarius is no longer interacting with the moment itself, it is interacting where the moment leads. And this is both its greatest strength and its most consistent distortion. Because when the pattern is accurate, Aquarius becomes one of the most precise directional systems in the entire structure. It can anticipate shifts before they happen, align before impact, and move in accordance with patterns that others have not yet recognized. But when the pattern is incomplete, when it is formed without full input, when the system locks too early, Aquarius does not just misunderstand reality. It builds direction on something that was never fully there. And because its masculinity trusts understanding over experience, internal, it will hold that direction with certainty until something forces recalibration, which is why Aquarius does not struggle with lack of direction. It struggles with premature direction. Not because it doesn't think deeply enough, but because it can finalize direction before reality has fully presented itself. Aquarius is not moved to discover direction. It defines direction internally and then waits for reality to either confirm it or break it. Dang, I'm almost at an hour already. All right, so moral load, Aquarius is number 11. So Aquarius sits low in moral load, but that position only makes sense if you understand what it actually carries and, more importantly, how it resolves. Because Aquarius does not release in the same way Sagittarius releases, and that distinction is critical. So we are going to be comparing Aquarius and Sagittarius. All right, so Sagittarius resolves. Let me see. Do I go into that? How deep do I get into this? All right, so we're going to compare them later, not yet. All right, so where was I? Great. All right, so Sagittarius resolves through motion. It engages reality directly, tests it. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to put it in the corner. I'm going to put you in the corner for a moment because we will be bringing that up in depth here in a little bit. Okay, this is what I'm going to do because that is going to be a thing. We're going to be breaking these two down in depth in a moment. So I am going to rotate them because Sagittarius is up here. All right. All right, now I feel better. All right, so Sagittarius resolves through motion. It engages reality directly. So if you see, you've got SE parent and SE inferior. So Sagittarius resolves through motion. It engages reality directly, tests it, extracts what holds, and leaves the rest behind. Its nervous system completes through action. You can see the resolution happen. It is behavioral, it is directional, it moves through something and out of it. Aquarius does not move out, it understands through. Aquarius steps back from the experience, pulls it inward, maps the pattern, defines the structure, and once something becomes internally coherent, it no longer experiences that situation as something that needs to be carried. That is not avoidance, it is resolution through comprehension. Because for Aquarius, weight is not stored in the event itself. It is stored in the lack of understanding around the event. So when something happens, something emotional, something relational, something destabilizing, Aquarius does not remain inside the feeling of it for long. It immediately begins translating it. It organizes it into a pattern, so that's TE and NI dynamics, places it within a system and asks what is it structurally, where it fits, and what it means with the larger model of reality. And as long as those questions remain unresolved, the tension remains. But the moment the system closes, when the pattern makes sense, when the contradiction resolves, when the experience can be fully accounted for, the tension dissipates, not gradually, completely, because the nervous system is no longer, or the system is no longer complete, is no longer incomplete. Aquarius does not carry through time, it carries through understanding. And once understanding is achieved, the system experiences closure, regardless of whether the external situation has actually finished. But this is where the gap forms, and this is where Aquarius is often misunderstood. Because if you stop here, it does sound detached. It does sound like Aquarius simply doesn't carry what others carry. But that's only true if you're measuring it on the wrong axis. Aquarius is not here to carry people. Aquarius is here to stabilize reality for people, and that is a completely different form of moral load. Aquarius does not carry emotional weight across time. It carries structural responsibility for truth that holds beyond the moment. So what is actually happening is not the experience, so what it is actually holding is not the experience. It is the integrity of the system that explains the experience. It is holding whether reality still makes sense, whether the pattern is accurate, whether the structure holds under pressure. And when it doesn't, that is where Aquarius feels tension, not as emotion, but as distortion. Something is off, something doesn't line up, something in reality is no longer coherent. And that is what Aquarius works to resolve. So when Aquarius steps back, analyzes, and explains, it is not avoiding the moment, it is trying to restore structural clarity. And when that clarity is restored, the weight disappears because there's nothing left that requires holding. So this is why Aquarius contributes in a way that is not always immediately felt, but is massively impactful over time. Because when Aquarius is healthy, it gives people something most systems cannot. It gives clarity that removes confusion, frameworks that reduce chaos, perspective that outlives the moment, truth that still holds even when emotions change. It does not sit in the emotional experience for long, but it gives you something that can prevent you from repeating the same experience again. And this is where the tension becomes real. Because when someone is hurting, they're not looking for structure. They're not looking for explanation. They're not looking for system level truth. They're looking for presence, for attunement, for someone to stay with them inside the experience. And Aquarius skips that layer. So instead of meeting someone where they are, it meets them where things make sense. And that can feel cold. It can feel like distance. It can feel like being explained instead of being felt. But there is a trade-off happening because most high emotional load systems will sit with you, feel with you, and carry the weight with you, but they may not resolve it. Aquarius will not stay in the weight the same way, but it will resolve the confusion behind it. So instead of giving shared weight, Aquarius gives released weight. Instead of carrying the burden with you, Aquarius removes the reason the burden exists, and that is the actual moral contribution. All right, I'm going to take this off for a moment. Not quite there yet. Map out your higher potential, total Aquarius language. So Aquarius contributes by making reality make sense again. And when reality makes sense, people regain something fundamental. They regain agency, direction, perspective, and clarity. This is not emotional support in the traditional sense. This is existential stabilization. But this is also where the distortion reveals itself, because understanding does not always equal shared completion. Aquarius can close the internal loop while the external loop is still open. I'm going to actually make that key card a little bigger, just so you can kind of visually see how the dynamics are working. All right, so Aquarius can close the internal loop while the external loop is still open. It can resolve meaning while impact is still being felt. It can reach clarity while others are still inside confusion. And when that happens, the release that feels natural to Aquarius feels premature to everyone else. Because from their perspective, nothing has been completed yet. They are still inside it, they're still carrying it, and Aquarius is already done. So the issue is not that Aquarius does not care. It is not that Aquarius lacks depth. It is that Aquarius completes in understanding, while others complete in experience. And until those timelines are brought to get closer together, Aquarius will continue to be perceived as detached, not because it is absent, but because it has already reached the point where caring no longer serves a purpose. When Aquarius is healthy, this changes. It does not lose its ability to understand. It does not stop resolving through structure. It simply adjusts the sequence. Instead of understanding, explaining, and being done, you know what? I'm actually going to bring up my key card so you can kind of see the distortion order. I don't know why I didn't do that sooner. It's a good idea. I think I'm going to cap this video off because I'm already over an hour. I wanted to go maybe half an hour, but yeah, all right. So there's the distortion order. All right, so it does not lose its ability to understand. It does not stop resolving through structure. It simply adjusts the sequence. Instead of understanding, explaining, and being done, Aquarius connects first, then understands, then explains. So now Aquarius meets people where they are before it moves them to where things make sense. And when that happens, Aquarius becomes one of the most powerful support systems there is because now people feel seen and understood, held and clarified, supported and stabilized. Aquarius does not carry your pain. It carries the structure that can make sure you don't have to carry it forever. Aquarius does not hold the weight with you. It removes the reason the weight exists. And that is the full truth of its position on the moral load axis. Aquarius does not carry what happened. It carries whether what it understood actually holds. And once it does, the weight is gone, even if the moment is not. All right, so what time is it? Can I go on? Should I make this its own video? All right, so I'm gonna cap this here. I might do a little bit more work tonight, but I think this is a really good capping place. Next, I want to get into comparing Aquarius and Sagittarius. They are both about truth, but in different ways. And then after that, I'm going to break down in depth the inner feminine, inner masculine, outer feminine, and outer masculine through the Aquarian nervous system. So, anyways, that was amazing. I felt pretty good about this. Can't wait to rewatch it. Anyways, hopefully you enjoyed this video as much as I did. Feel free to leave your thoughts and emotions in the comments below. Aquarius, because my Mercury is in Aquarius, 11th house, that is where my thinking and communication is. Very much so Aquarian. I spent all of last year, I spent an entire year working on Aquarius's personality. I've done many videos. I've written many books. There are several free books talking about Aquarius's masculine and feminine. They are free still until I hit 11 people that download those, and then I'm going to sell them after that. So there are free books. I have my master book done on Aquarius, breaking down the I don't include moral load or the inner and outer masculine and feminine architecture in my master ego book for Aquarius. That's more about the cognitive functions and planetary imprints. I am currently working on a 700-page ebook. Through this series, I am breaking down every single archetype that I've broken down in this series. I am combining all of that into a master ebook because I have introduced the inner and outer masculine and feminine containment through an archetype's nervous system under pressure. So that is going to be its own book in itself. All I'm saying is I have free ebooks, I have big ebooks, I have many, many videos on Aquarius. I have an Aquarian playlist here. I understand being misunderstood. This personality is absolutely out of this world. So if you want to learn more about Aquarius, do check out my playlist here on YouTube. Anyways, hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully it was coherent, organized, and I will see y'all in the next video. Thank you so much for being here.